right. This is Kristin Anderson. It's July 26th, and I am sitting here with, could you say your name?
My name is Dale DeBerry.
And could you spell it for us?
D-A-L-E, capital D of D-E-B-E-R-R-Y, and the B is capital.
Awesome. Thank you. And we are here in Holly Springs. Thank you so much for being here with us today. So just to start with some background, can you tell us about where and when you were born and your childhood?
Well, I was born right here in Marshall County. Matter of fact, in the old hospital here in Marshall County in 1962, December the 17th. So I'm a Sagittarius, and I keep up with most of the characteristics of a Sagittarius. We are friendly. I think my wife had to realize one thing, that I am a friend to everybody, not just her. But we have a wonderful relationship. For the last 25 years of our marriage and 5 years prior, we have 5 children. 3 are in college. 2 attends HBC, which is Tougaloo, and she's going for her last year this year for his undergrad. And my other daughter is in Xavier. She wanted to be a doctor, and so she's down there. That's her 3rd year coming. And I have another son that's going into physical therapy. And then my youngest son, Kanan, is a basketball player, and this is one of the kids that I think that he's on the right track, because he's not putting all his eggs in one basket. He understands his grades are important, but I see certain people pursue things that really is not of their function. But when you see someone, then it's our job to develop that. A lot of times we try to change, and that's kind of pretty much my philosophy. So my children is who I am, in a sense. And my dog taught me how to train a child and to deal with people. If we can train a beast, then surely we ought to be able to deal with each other with the same abilities to communicate on that higher level. So I'm from Marshall County. I'm from a rich family of the struggle. My grandfather, my Uncle Roy, his friends, one that's hosting us here, came down in the 60s. So, and all of my life I've been one, and I just discovered what it's about when I used to go to camps in the late 60s and early 70s, and it was just coming through integration, and I could see bigotry and racism being peddled. And I watched these things, and that's because I love nature, because I was falling back in school. I was undiagnosed with all these kids' problems of today, I was dyslexic. I was dysfunctional. I was functionally illiterate when I graduated high school. But I could test on a test and score, so I went into the military. So I've been around injustices, and I've responded to them all of my life, and I've caught a lot of flack for them, even from my family, pulling my coattail, but it's just something that was in me. And now I'm realizing that's that principle I guess I'm learning more about is my art, that sense of justice and balance in life. Is no one has the right to hinder someone else's freedom. And I don't think we realize what impact that have on your society in which you're trying to create when you ostracize and marginalize a certain group of people. And we know this, that a lot of the cures for the pandemic and cancer and AIDS lies in the brains of dead boys, young black boys, early graves, in jail, incarcerated, merely wasting time. And so we know this, but yet the hatred sometimes and the ignorance, I would like to go that way. Most of the time it's not hatred. The average person, I think, perpetuate racism not out of a spirit of hate, but a spirit of ignorance. See, because ignorance breeds fear, and fear breeds hatred. See, if you're not aware of something, you begin to hate it. If it's a sound outside of your door, you think it's someone's out there, you begin to be fearful of it because you're ignorant of actually what it is. Once you find out it's just the rustling of the leaves, and you have no ignorance, and the fear dissipates. But as long as that fear is there, and so fear is so many different places, like we talk about at this Holly Spring. Well, we could turn this town, and I know this with the help of real strong people. I'm just being honest. It could be the next Williamsburg. And you can make it, you can allow it to grow. And with the tourist, Mrs. Battle, if we really supported each other and stop just talking this rhetoric about unification, because it does the gazelle no good to advocate, to sitting with the lion. It does the gazelle no good to advocate sitting with the lion if the lion don't agree to not to eat flesh. So you don't want to unify. Sheep can't unify with the wolf until the wolf has his teeth pulled, his claws are defanged or something, or agree not to eat of the flesh. So we so pushing about unification, but people of like mind must unify. Not unifying with a demonic, but of like mind, and must transcend color. And that's a challenge, because those that have been oppressed knows it oh so well, and those that have not, or perhaps even been the oppressor, can't fathom. See, Dr. Rice at Russ put something on my head, Ms. Battle. And he said he was trying to teach, he's a doctorate. He's trying to teach high school students. He thought that was a difficult thing. And he said he remembered what he learned in math. You have less than and a greater than sign, but we so often leave off that equal to. So as he said that, I began, like your brain's supposed to do, you began to critically think that thing. And then I began to realize that, certain things I already knew. See, the most challenging thing in racism and race discrimination and social ills is not trying to get the poor or the masses to come up, but to get this one that thinks he's superior to come down. That's the challenge. So often we focus on things because of theory, because of what you've seen, but you haven't seen what that little boy in the corner of Holly Springs seen. So you ought to listen to him. So I applaud you guys for wanting to do just that. And behind the big house we used to do all those stories, and people are going to frown on those stories. The same people that say they want unity. But when you start creating, because you got to crack some eggs now to bake a good cake, right? So when we start cracking those eggs, you see them cringe. I talked to a former alderman. She said she's tough-skinned and she can have the tough conversation. I can show you a picture, and I'm not going to do that now. But later, just for the sake of illustration, there was nothing in her being that said unity. Kinesiology, I'm quite sure you guys dabble in a little of that. Arm crossed, chin in, eyes coming at the top. You done shut totally down. And so we have to be able to realize when people shut down. People look at me. I had a young man from Greenwood, Mississippi. He was hard on his luck, and I brought him into my home. Didn't bring him all the way into my home, but I allowed him to stay in places that I had convenience because I had children but it was the right thing to do. But we went to a local hardware store, and this white man that we had mutual respect one to another. Tall young man from the forest, and we admired this one black guy that goes to this church. And he would come, and he met me at the church, tending to this black man's as a friend. And he listened to me speak, and I didn't sugarcoat. I come straight from the hip. It's got to be real. I sugarcoat it if you're not gonna eat it, and I know it's needed. Then I add a little molasses to it. See, we always condemn. Well, don't sugarcoat it. I need this medicine in this person. If not, they will die. And if a little molasses is gonna get my baby to eat this, then I will. So we was in this hardware store, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, Mr. DeBerry, it's been a long time since I've seen you." Blah, blah, blah. We got to talking. Then we got into conversation similar to this. And the guy that was from Greenwood started filming me. I didn't pay no attention to him because I didn't want to draw nothing to him because I don't know what you're doing, but you filming me. So I get outside and say, "Man, what were you filming me for?" He said, "Man, I ain't never seen nobody talk to no white person like that." And we was friends. And we was having a friendly conversation, but he saw it only as what he had been taught, what it's supposed to be. It wasn't that he was rude even to him. I did one with Mrs. Y at Holly Springs, all Holly Springs. And we had about 35 of my white colleagues and friends, and about 25 blacks. And the photos that came back with my cousin, every photo, every video that you saw of her eyes was never on me. What do you think her eyes was? They was on my white brothers. trying to figure out how they're going to respond to this. What you going to say now? What are you going to say about that? Or he's talking to you like that and y'all smiling? Because I wasn't saying anything wrong. Now, if your guilt causes you to attack, then we know who you are. So you throw a rock in a crowd of dogs, the one you hit's gonna bark, and we just gotta do better at learning that. And don't beat up on them. You have to remain humble. I think the secret in life to me is you have to remember that humiliation is not in vain. You see? When someone mistreat me, look how much damage they do to themselves. That's a lot of power. If you are a righteous person and someone mistreats you, and anyone that's even desire to be righteous will look at you in a different light, may even do you harm in the future because of what you've done to me. And that's why they say test not the anointed, but these tricks around here in reality, they don't know who the anointed is. And the one that say it often is not anointed. The anointed don't speak of his anointing. The anointed live his anointing. He doesn't have to, do he, Mr. Fallon? And so my history goes back Marshall County. I have stories to tell of my grandfathers. One in particular is a spirit of entrepreneurship. It is my grandfather, Turner Lester. And this story is told at all family reunions so the children will always remember. And he had a thing, and you got different classism and isms among the African sharecroppers and tenant farmers, renters, and owners of land, because Marshall County did own land as Africans. But my grandfather, I guess the way I get it, he was born in 1905. And he had to be about 10 or 11, so this is around 1912 or 15 or so. Young man, young boy, staying with his father. And a man was moving. And the man saw him going fishing one day. You know, you only get to fish like on Saturday, very late after you're still in slavery. I don't care if it's under your daddy, you know, but you're no longer enslaved, but you're still slaves. And so he was walking to go fishing, and this man called to him and said, "Do you want to work today? Could I get you to move some things for me, because we're moving off this place," and blah, blah, blah. And my grandfather did that. And the man paid him with a goat and a cart. I guess back in that day, a goat and cart was a popular thing for little boys, you know. So he brought it home. It's kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk, I guess. His father looked at him and said, "Boy, you ain't did nothing. You got a goat." So he said, I don't remember what my daddy did with the goat, but he traded the goat for a heifer. So his father gave him a heifer because he told him the goat wasn't going to never mount to nothing. We don't do goats. He said, "I think we ate that goat." But anyway, the goat was transformed into a heifer. And with that heifer, he began to have his little livestock. And that word itself began to teach me when he would tell me the story. Livestock, livestock. Then, so what's the difference between livestock and the stock market? None. One of them is merely living. You invest in a cow. If the cow don't die, if the stock stays or remains, or multiply, which has a calf. So I, as a little tot, began to process this, and I was wondering, why is this man always referring to these cows as livestock? Well, I gotta go tend to my livestock. He didn't say I gotta go tend to my cows. But in sublime, he was betting something in my mind. So at the age of 19, I bought my first rental property. Is it that I focused on it? I haven't planned anything in my life. This is something you may not want to put in the interview, you know, because I don't believe in planning. But I don't want your kids not to plan, you know. But if you get your hand in a greater source, planning is not necessary, because I'm going to do what I love. And if I do what I love, I never work. And if I never work, I'm not going to be stressed. You know? People ask themselves, ask yourselves, everybody around here, are you free? Can you go to your fifth cousin's funeral and you're supposed to be working? You got to get permission on this. And not about 10, they're going to say that's not a medium family. So you're not free. Freedom comes when you have responsibilities. And if you're taking on responsibilities, I got 5 children and I retired on my own. I don't have anything, you know. But in 05, I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I want to be able to go where I want to go, do what I want to do. Now that means what? I have to be more responsible. So well, just usually just drab off my monies and spend it here. But now you get to a certain point when you get older, you people that's not older yet, you're gonna realize sometimes the biggest treat you're gonna have is just a meal, isn't it? Nothing else matters. All the money is now saved for your children. You don't want anything. You don't want new shoes. It don't mean anything anymore. You know, I like to take a drink. You know, my brother like to dress real nice, but that's about all you be doing because you got money, you done taken care of, you in comfort. But if you are a slave, you done got rid of everything. So when you die, we don't even know if we can bury you. That means you gave all your money back to the oppressor. Now, you got anything you want me to speak in particular? Because I do have a piece that I want to show you that would explain some things too. But
We'd like you to see we'd like to see the piece. I mean, we have questions.
Okay, yeah, just whatever, y'all stop me because, I enjoy this. Because I think we'll figure. I'm just going to show you some of the ones, then I'm going to show you that one because it has a little more of a story. So this is what I do. And the reason why I do it in clay, see, this is clay. I do it for several reasons. First, in honor of the ancients that didn't do it in clay. Because if you didn't do it in clay or stone, it rotted in the Sahara, in the sub-Saharan Africa. So our culture did not lend itself into the future because they all are in mud heaps now, decayed and rot. Maybe that's the way it should have been because then we wouldn't have such progression of evil, but also of the technology. But Egypt lived with heavy technology for thousands of years and did not kill themselves off. I'm a bricklayer also. That trowel that I use was invented over 15,000 years ago or more, and it has not changed in its its style. You don't have a hammer anymore. You don't need one. You got air guns. But the trowel, that brick, that story you hear in the Bible about Nimrod in the plains of Shinar. Let us make brick and bake them thoroughly and use the mortar, and then we'll build. Because man knows one thing for sure. If you are going to get people to settle down in hundreds of thousands of them at one time, you're going to need provisions. That means you're going to have to be able to shelter them from this harsh climate. And you got to be able to provide for them. You got to be able to feed them. And then you got to be able to protect them because we're settling down and everybody know our GPS location. So if we stop, nomads can come and take all the stuff that we have kept. So we got to build walls. So the brick sounds like a great idea. But it began to take man down another road, envy. So once I built that wall around myself, this is mine. What you got in there? I want one of those. If you can't have mine, then they break in to get it. Envy. I want what she got. What she got back there? Conspiring with the neighbor. I think she got two of these things. Murder may even come into play. It's merely an allegory of human beings' behavior one to another. So Nimrod is called this wicked man. Why is Nimrod a wicked man? He's a Cushite. So you're making wicked, but Nimrod built the first kingdom, and Jesus Christ himself don't even want to be a king. He fled them because they sought to make him a king. I don't think he liked y'all calling him Lord. Because he don't want to be your king. He want to be your brother. He said you were joint heirs. So I make this in remembrance of when we lay down to rest, we were here. Ashe? We were here. And this naps that you see, sometimes you go to restaurants in Thailand or you go to your Thai restaurants or your Indian restaurants and you see little circles around their head. What kind of hair is that? It's not portrayed long. And those statues was often made out of onyx and black stones. So we've been here a long time. A long time. And we are in you, you are in me, we are one. It can't all stay the same. Look at our hues and differences, complexions. We're still one. So I do clay. That's one of the reasons why I do clay. And then sometimes I'll dress my clay up because I do a little of everything. I like carpentry, so I'll frame it. And people get told me all the time, why you don't just show this? Because I love making it. Selling it, if someone really enjoys a piece, oh man, I almost give it to them because I'm so excited. A lady told me something that scared me the first time I heard the phrase, that I'm getting better at knowing things now. She said, when I first saw that piece, I knew I wanted it to come live with me. She scared me. I was like, that ain't went that far. I don't know what you said. But she enjoyed it. And it was one. And then I made a good, she paid me good because I always undersell things. And it was this piece, but I had taken out large pieces of area, so it looked like it had decayed. It had a skeletal look. And the name of it was The Last Remnants of Life. So we saw it fading away, and this is something that I did. And not like I say, I just enjoyed it. It's therapeutic. And here's one that's in the Ida B. Wells Museum here. There's a plaquette, if it's on display. And I had to take one of these. So it had like 3 plaquettes, and it was talking about the progress of man. And the earlier ones, if you see on the plaquette, is a footprint, because we learned to do that as a kid, remember? Take the dust on the car, put your knuckle down there, and put your little feet, your toes on it. You know, you could do that. And so I did that in the clay, and it's a plaquette. But this plaquette is more dealing with the creative nature of Ra. And I didn't even know it then. I wrote, like I said, I was writing a book, and it was all Christian oriented and all that. But at a certain point, I realized I couldn't write anymore. I deleted a chapter, and I couldn't write. And I realized now that the Spirit didn't allow me to continue down that route because I was writing it as a nonfiction. But in reality, a lot of it was fiction. You know, when you referencing, the script, because of so much manipulation. So it had to become a thesis in a sense, or a thought in the manipulation. So you see that Nimrod thing still stays with me. So when the sun and it creates everything, you see the building of a building, you can barely see it. And it's like kind of one big piece of moving things. And then at the bottom, before Obama ran, this was my symbol of crops and prosperity, like a rainbow with lines. Then you had holes, because somewhere I had learned about a lot of the fertility gods and how they would go out there and men would, drop their semen to make the ground fertile and all that kind of thing as a ritual. But it was just to understand that they needed this crop to grow. We try to make it out of an image of a god and goddesses and all that, but it really was a concept that had to be remembered, and they remember it through story. And here's my favorite. Here's a piece that I wouldn't take, I don't think, any kind of money. Don't nobody offer that, though, so make me a lie. But I just think this is a piece that says it all about the African and their plight. And if you zoom, if you can see this piece, the name of this piece is "What the Hell Is This on My Mouth?" What the hell is this on my mouth? And when I did that piece, I wasn't aware that they would put mouthpieces in slaves. You don't do the enslavement process. Shortly after I did this piece, I saw it on NPR, and they was talking about that very thing. And I began to notice a long time ago, there's no coincidence. So the spirit realm is real, Certain things you do, you be like, how did that happen? I just talked about you, girl. Something is happening. And as you begin to awaken, he will start showing you, and almost you can summon in the spirit. My grandfather told me that one time. He told me, he said, he was talking about, I thought he was doing it through the Masons or something. He said, if you're a certain character, a man can be walking with his back to you, and you can make that man turn around. Then I began to see later, that is very possible. Because, see, your brain, in my opinion, does not house your memory. You see? We think of that way. It's just a ball of fat and electrodes. Your brain has the password to tap into where it's at. Everything you have is recorded in the cosmos. That's why a psychic can tell you what you did when you were 6. She can go up there and access it. Normally, only you could access it through your electric, your proper frequencies. See, that's what you all are, When you read the story of Genesis, what did it tell you about? You heard the voice, not saw him. I heard the voice of the Lord moving in the garden. So it's a vibration. But then man wasn't made by word. He was made from the earth. But how did he create the earth? Through vibration. He spoke it. And the earth is vibrating. and he takes you out of it, and you're vibrating. Right? Your physicality is in a frequency higher than what we, high freak. And you notice how we fall is because we get what they call low bass frequencies, sexualities, deal with your immoralities. And then if we think about it, men and women are drawn to each other from the lower extremities as a whole, right? And that's your distribution system. That's your waist distro system. But yet your mind is where you're supposed to be elevating, right? Let this mind be in you that was also in Christ Jesus. That's the Christo, not the Jesus per se, but the Christo. This mind that is in the highness. What is that word, highness? You hear it in England? Your highness. They're giving the title of God to a man. God is the only highness. The highest of the high, right? So when a man thinks that he can captivate a man, you put chains on our legs and brought us to this country, and we was tethered and feathered and all of that. And now you have taken the chains off of our legs. Same as that dog that I saw. Perhaps that dog will not run across the street. So he don't need to be chained anymore because the chains are now in him, on his mind. Stay, boy. He ain't going anywhere. But if you teach a dog how to sit, you can't use that word sit for just about anything else. You can't have two meanings to sit. Oh, I thought you meant sit. Dog ain't gonna go there. He gonna sit. So I began to explore not the concept of enslavement and leaving it there, but enslavement, and then you're talking about what it really was happening, domestication. A domestication process for a human being. Can you fathom that? And what do domestication mean? You college guys know much better than I do. And I put it this way: to bring under submission for one's own advantage. Did that pretty much hit it? So when the dog is brought in to run the rabbit, no longer for his pups, but for his master. Now you render this person to a state that you didn't have the right to. And I'm gonna drop it. Can I say some words that you may not like about this one? So it gives way to the word nigger. Shouldn't he have the right to name the creature that he just invented? Frankenstein named his. So if I can break you from being an African, being a moral man, defending your family instead of his family, I have domesticated you. So I should be able to call you something new. Christians say they are new creatures, right? So when you take this black man or woman and rob her of her existence to be who she is, you can call her whatever you want, because it's no longer an African. Only in flesh, she's an African. But when she think like her captive, feel sorry for her captive, that's a nigger. And don't let nobody feed you this thing about anybody can be a nigger. No such thing. Or it's someone that just don't think, someone that don't understand, someone that's ignorant. You ain't never heard a lot of white people call his friend nigger. I don't care how mad they get, do they? Cut you off at this light, they're not gonna say, you nigger. They'll say, you asshole, you jerk, you... come up with something, make up a new one. But not nigger. Because nigger is defined by color first, and then the state of mind of that person. So when you call me a nigga, somebody call me a nigga, that ain't gonna bother me. I know I ain't no nigga. I don't know what you're talking about, but that ain't me. You know?
Can I ask, you mentioned being called that name. Do you have any experiences like that out here? Any experiences where people...
Not really to my face, because, yeah, I've been
or any discrimination?
I've heard other stories of things, you know, and it can hit close around to these circles. The men are still being whipped. Mm-hmm. See, but let me ask you a question. Mm-hmm. If I work for you, you are my master, and you're a brutal man, okay? And this is 1980, 2022. And you have been letting me use your bulldozer. We never had a problem with that in the past. But we had a few words on Friday. You had told me I could use the bulldozer on Saturday. I get the bulldozer, and you say that the bulldozer has been stolen. Now, I'm going to bring you to my barn. I'm going to take your shirt off, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to whoop your... Or I'm going to call the police. Which one do you want? And you know you've been to jail before. What you going to do? I would take the ass whooping too, but I wouldn't work for you tomorrow. But when you got nowhere to turn, because you're already in my debt, you will continue to work with me. And if I give a person $75,000 or $30,000, knowing that you have my loyalty, you may be mine until you 50 years old and you just not 25. And I already got you on a charge because I got you out of jail when you started fooling with me.
Yeah.
And I got connection to the judge. All I got to do is make a call. You don't even have to go to court now. You violate probation. Straight to the big house you go. I done let you stay down there 2 or 3 years. That ought to be long enough for him to cool his heels. Let me call him and see if he want to get out now. I'll talk to the warden. But it don't conjure up hate. It conjures up wickedness in man. It's not the person that is doing the evil towards me that is evil. He's stained by the evil that's in him. You see? So hatred can't be your place. Guy said on the radio the other day, I was out in town, so I didn't get to tell him, and then the power went out on me, Miss Battle, and he said, see, we focus too much on them talking about white people, and we should be focusing on what we doing to each other, killing and stuff. Boy, I wanted to call in then. And he's a solid guy, but I wanted to call in. And all I was going to say was, I think our focus should not be on what we do to each other, but what we do not do for each other. Can you imagine if we focused on that? $420 billion the African-American churches collected in 30 years? Makes me sick. $10 billion, you could have bought 10 NBA, NFL stadiums and still have $410 billion left. You could have bought every HBC. I don't think they would run much more than $2 billion, $10 billion. But anybody around think that all the HBC would be worth $10 billion? That'll be hard to do because you don't know what a billion is. If you stack $1 billion worth of warrants up, and let's tape them there so they'll stay stacked up on top of each other, and let's push them down, they will go to the Mississippi River on the other side of Tennessee. 67.9 miles. That's how tall a stack of $1 bills and $1 billion would be. 10 billion. Oh my goodness.
So you mentioned that we should be focused on what we do for each other. Mm-hmm. Is Holly Springs like that? Is this like a tight-knit community?
All politics is local. Remember that, right? Am I right on that? I have to go and refer back to him because I do respect him. Don't even know him, but he walked with my uncle, and he was a part of the civil rights movement that was here. So, yes, everywhere you go, I see friends from New Jersey, and sometimes they are just as twisted or backwards in their thinking as a man in Red Banks, Mississippi, because they have been indoctrinated. Maybe not as much domesticated, but now you've been indoctrinated. So now you assimilating because you was integrated. And integration has with it assimilation. We didn't necessarily want integration. We wanted desegregation. Most of us say that, you get along better with your own friends, but if you had the freedom, then you would be able to explore, and you'll realize now those barriers really should have never existed in the first place, because this girl here grew up with me because in Holly Springs, Marshall County, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, when a kid got a certain age in certain areas of these parts of this country, at 12, they played and ate out of the same spoon. Talked about little boy things. Maybe saw that pubic hairs come in at the same time. Relating to each other with vulnerable relationship. And then somewhere down the line, the father comes in and tells this young man, do not believe what you see and believe what society wants you to do. And that is, you can no longer be with little John. That's a nigga. Will don't take kindly to nigga lovers. I asked my strong white friend, you talk good, sound good. Every time I talk to you, you say, you're not prejudiced, but you telling me racism is dead, but you telling me your uncles and your mamas and cousins are still prejudiced. Those are the ones that we see most of the time. We see your uncles and aunties. We don't see you. Very seldom we see him or you, and hopefully you. We don't see those type of people, because when you're asked to take the high road, one thing I've learned, because I've taken the high road a few times. My kids get mad at me because I take it all the time. But there's no traffic jam on the high road. It's smooth sailing. Ain't but a few people up there. Correct. When you take that high road, man, who do you think you're going to see up there? Not many people. But does not your scripture say the same? That the road to destruction is paved wide, but the way is narrow. So who do you think you're going to accost every day? You're going to accost the wicked. And so us righteous, or those that desire to be righteous, and I'm not talking about self-righteousness. So, well, that's the whole thing. But get back to this. So you see the chains on the minds are now being loosed. So that means we're preparing to take them off the minds, because we have controlled the minds of the African, because he's no longer a producer. He don't think as a producer. He think merely as a consumer. And whatever the producer, whatever music he plays, the consumer got to dance. Now, so they taking them off your mind because they got you pretty good. They got you pretty good. See it slack, ain't no stiff. It's coming off. We can take him off his mind now, because he don't even know he's in bondage. Now we got one thing. Every now and then he says something that make other folk think and start an uproar in the bottom of the bow of the ship. You leave that on him for a while. Don't say this. I told him on my radio program, I want to see you out there. You too, Miss Ballard. I invited you many times. I said, you can, my sponsors, and I do for the banks here. I said, they can tell me what to say, but they can't tell me what not to say. Because if he tells me what to say, I can say that. Then I can turn back around and say what I want to say about that. But if I can't say things, then I cannot progress and stand. And once this thing come off your mouth, and you see it too, because I don't know what the hell that is on his mouth. I really don't. And up here, you see, then you become befitting of an enslaved. You got a metallic or metal apparatus coming out of your head just so you can be controlled by your oppressor. And I wrote a number over the top and can't remember the number today. I don't even know what it is. I've seen it a lot of times. I just put an arbitrary number. I guess I just don't try to remember what that number is, because it has no real meaning. It's just a number, just like you as a person to the medical business. You're merely a number, just like you to the warden. You are merely a number. You to the penal system, or the jail, or the law enforcement, your work, you are merely a number. You're not a human being. You have to remember that. They're not thinking about when they cut your job and then they tell you not to take it personal. That is the most personal thing that you will ever experience, is a loss of job, and you got family and household. How much more personal can it get? We've been trained to understand and not to overstand. See, under is lacking. You understand something. Then they go to the scripture and say, well, the Bible says, out of all your getting, get understanding, right? You done heard that before, haven't you? The biblical people, right? But then what else he say? Lean not on your own understanding. See? So the understanding is always lacking. So that's that piece there. That's one of my favorites right there. A question?
So Angelica McGee. My question is, I guess more from an individual standpoint, what do you consider an activist to be?
It's amazing. We talk about that spirit world. It came to me this morning. It seems like there's an uptick in activism now. An activist is, to me, is anyone that will speak for the voiceless in any matter. We're dealing with homosexuality, for example, and that's a difficult subject matter. But the way I approach that is this was. The test is not whether they are of choice, nature, nurture. They are experiencing outside hatred for what they believe. So the test to the society is how do you respond to them? I don't agree with it, but I can't be abusive towards you. I can't discriminate against you. I have to treat you like a human being. I got gays friends, and they don't know I know that they're gay. You see what I'm saying? It's not my duty to look at them either way. I told you I'm equal, not greater than, nor less than, but equal. So we have this issue, heavy issues. Whenever a man tried to fix a problem and he is not in line with ma'at or justice and righteousness and fairness, he created another problem. Now, Roe v. Wade is another one that nobody want to talk about. Roe v. Wade was conceived from a very compassionate position. Correct? You Bible thumpers, you male chauvinists, all of those that are guilty of these things, and if I wasn't, God forgive me. A woman or child would become impregnated, could not face the stigma of their parents. Abortion was their only option. Even sometime if you were from an elite group, then your family encouraged the abortion to protect the image of themselves. Now, this is going to happen, just like kids are going to have sex. Then you're talking about not using condoms and all that old kind of crazy talk. It's going to happen. When this girl get pregnant and are fearful to go home to her family, she go and seek out someone to perform this. She could die from preeclampsia, toxemia, just bleed out. And what's going to happen to the girl? Whoever's performing this is going to have to cover their tracks. Now, we're going to just throw you away. So they didn't want this to be happening because it was happening. But here's the reason why they came and got it. Because 2 or 3 years ago is the first time that the white American population declined. Even though Negroes are getting plenty of abortions, they don't want to stop us from having them. But at the expense of my white girls not having them, we are falling ground. And then the ignorance in this. You let it rain for 50 years until people get very comfortable and feel as if it's their right. Their God-given right. Now that becomes a dilemma. 70 years ago, you wouldn't be talking about a right. But we're trying to say these babies, so all you do is have a relationship with your children. Teach them the truth about sex. You probably could avoid a lot of unwanted pregnancies. But you chose to be so embarrassed, now you want to handle the homosexuality issue, you can't even deal with the heterosexual issue. You create another dilemma. So now Roe v. Wade ain't through yet, because I listened to a right-wing radio station, and he was like, oh, okay, now we can start it, now replay, because you know it's a you know, Jews will not replace me, Negroes will not replace me, you know, Mexican won't replace me. We can replace them now with our white workforce. They fail to see one very important thing, that this workforce that you're dreaming of, those kids are unwanted. 650,000 abortions last year or so, give or take a 1,000 or so, are unwanted children that's now going to be walking around next year. Now, a lot of them are not going to be entering into this workforce you're talking about in the next 20, 30 years. They're going to be entering into jails, boys and girls. Prostitution going to skyrocket because you got unwanted children, unwanted girls. They're going to start stripping. There's going to be a way to make that easy money. They ain't going to have the moral footing because they're going to be coming from foster care. And what are they going to do to the foster care? You already want to adopt. All these evangelicals, evil angels, whatever they call themselves. You sound good, but in reality, you're not ready to adopt these children, white or black. You're not ready to increase your foster care. If you have a foster care child in Memphis, that child may be sent to New Jersey. Now, what are you going to do with 600,000 new unwanted children? And I'm not advocating abortion. I'm advocating pragmatic approaches to complicated situations. Stop making the simple complicated and the complicated simple. See, grandmothers didn't have to know that 1 out of every 8 children are going to be pregnant before they're 18. She just knew it was too damn many. Right? That's that imperial data stuff, you know, your anecdotals that they throw away all the time. But that's the stuff that really makes sense. You see this. When you go to certain neighborhoods, you can see it. That house started going down before you know the house going. It's just nature. And our people, as a people now, and most people in societies and organizations, religions, they are all destroyed by neglect. Catholic Church split because of neglect. In around 1000, right? The Greek Orthodox and the Roman Catholic split. Then you had the Reformation period because you neglected to teach the people and remain relevant. You have to remain relevant. That's why the churches are drying up now. I think you had a question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, who are your biggest mentors, teachers, influences?
My mom was a dynamic first grade school teacher. You can see her impact in our community. Even if the guys are drunk or drugs or whatever, taking over their lives, they have a certain amount of respect. And there was teachers like that. My mom was one, a disciplinarian, but a hard, biggest goal. So you can be a disciplinarian. All disciplinarians don't have hearts. And a lot of times they get sadistic. But when you find a true disciplinarian and then it has the compassion and the love, you have a beautiful thing. When I went into the United States military, that was a breeze because I was in Ruby DeBerry's house. I left at 17. I couldn't leave the yard badly for the last 2 years. So we create our different things. That's my mom. My grandfather, in that unique way about telling the cows, and I was telling that story about the cows. So he took that cow and he began to be successful. They have the cows now. My uncle still, my mother wanted them cows. She said, no, when it's there, don't sell them all. Let's keep some of those original stock. And so right today. So I got a lot of that from him. He had a philosophy, you go to town with a full wagon and come back with an empty one. You don't go with an empty wagon and come back with a full. So he was always entrepreneuring. This thing here helps me out. You know, I got kids in college. We went to the family reunion. I sell enough of these sometimes just at the family reunion to pay for my room and stuff like that. And I did it when I was just sitting back chilling, maybe have me a little rum or something. And so the influence is all over because I'm a kid. I'm still a kid. I'm always observing. You guys influences me. When people want to come and take history from something that a lot of people don't even think is important, that influenced me. But my grandfather, my father, the way we was brought up, I have a DeBerry clan and a Lester clan. The Lesters are more down to earth, but they may wrestle more with breaking free under the spells of slavery because they was taught hard work and they worked hard and it worked for them. Carpenters and things of that nature. Well, the DeBerrys pursued academics, and degrees, and it works for them. I don't have anyone that I can think of that's in jail that, somebody in the family is going to visit. So I often look at us as black people as a resilient people. I don't believe the hype. I don't just see us killing each other. I went to a family reunion. No one really stayed in Savannah. But we organized a family reunion in Savannah, the same thing we did in Myrtle Beach. 135, 140 black people assemble in one place and then give accolades of what they're doing, going on to be college accepted in partnerships and law firms and wrote books. And so the African American, I just want to say, if this part don't edit out, we're strong and doing well. It's just that we can do much more because we're suffering because we don't manage our monies, that we take in. Like I just said, $220 billion in 30 years. That's an extreme amount of money. And then you have an economy that's within this economy, $1.2 trillion. And we can't figure out a way to capitalize on that. And then when we talk about sports athletes getting paid in college, et cetera, you have a problem with that? And they making these universities billions? See, when you go to these colleges, black and white, it doesn't matter. Most of the time it's the athletic department that keeps everything afloat, that your chess teams, your lacrosse. It's not lacrosse. Even baseball. You don't have nobody in baseball, right? Who done drafted anybody in baseball in the last 10 years? They go to the farm league. They got a built-in league that the company had to pay for. But in basketball and football, you got the farm league and the college. They tear out the league, they're no good. And you're making millions. Your coaches making millions. Your ESPNs are making billions of dollars. If you take the black person out of the entertainment industry, you're talking about trillions of dollars would disappear from singing to sports to writing. And we just underappreciate it.
On this subject of sports, this is Dr. Giorgio Topolidis. I'm curious, did you play any sports growing up as a kid?
As a kid, I asked you that too. As a kid, but never as a form, not in school. See, like I say, back to who I am, I was a shy kid, functionally illiterate. So that means I was always trying to stay away from the light, Don't call on me to read. I even got glasses so I could say I lost my glasses. And so I didn't have to read. So I played sports in the yard, sandlots, was good running back, good football player when it come down to hitting guys my size. But as I went into sports, that timidness, that don't want to hurt another person, couldn't hurt a person, couldn't hit a person in the stomach, couldn't fight, could get the best of it. So I boxed a while in the military, not on a team, but worked out with the team. I was with the NSA, so I couldn't go certain places they would go. My clearance wouldn't allow me to travel. So I boxed, I learned how to box. I became very good. I played flag football in the Army. Did play pretty good, really excelled in that. And I taught my children, my sons, I'm a shooter, I'm a ball player. I learned how to play basketball 21, that type of thing. And love to hustle, love to play. And I played pretty good ball, never for a team,
You mentioned that you were in the military. While in the military, did you experience any prejudice or discrimination? Did anybody seek you out and make you feel uncomfortable?
Not really. Mine was a little different. It was there, but see, we have to realize, particularly when you say military, each one of them brings its own dynamics. For example, the Navy. There were very few black people in the Navy. For one time, they used to have promotions in the World War II, or after World War II in Korea, they would say you can be black in Navy, because that's just how few people was there.
Is that the branch you were in?
No. My wife, I was just going to show you the comparison. So when you get into the Army, you got more Army, you got an elite group in the Army larger than the Navy. So I'm trying to show you the diversity. So when I went into the United States military, like I said, I could test, and I don't know how I did it, but I passed, and I had one of the highest scores. I could go anywhere. So I chose the Army, and then I was getting ready to go in. I was supposed to be going to Fort Benning, Georgia, which would have been in those elite fighting groups. I was a demolition expert. That was why I was a major in engineering. And so then they saw my score, so they put me in computers. But I wasn't ready for computers, fuzz in my mind, because I wasn't smart enough. I didn't have the academics, So I went into that field. So now I was just a token, because I'm going to, in 2 years, I'm at the Pentagon. So they're moving me fast because of my, they needed black guy with clearance. Well, where are you going to find a black guy that has that can get a clearance that's top, top. You go to any of your inner cities, they all did some type of amount of crime. So you won't qualify for the thing. So you come back to Mississippi, yeah, he's slow, he's not the smartest guy maybe, but he can get this clearance because he don't have no record. So I got this clearance, and now I'm in a group where it's predominantly white. You're talking about linguistics, you're talking about Morse code, you're talking about crypto and decryptions, you're talking about traffic controllers, officers, mixed groups for his Army, Navy, Marine, getting data coming in from all over the place, and you're part of the intelligent group. So I'm around predominantly white kids and around the most corniest white kids, you know what I mean? Because I am corny. My kids get on me all the time. I love corn. I like the kids in the hall, that type of thing. But I enjoy life, and I don't limit it. So those guys was prejudiced a lot of time and didn't know it. You get what I'm saying? They didn't realize that they was prejudiced. And
Any anecdotes that stand out in your mind?
Well, I had to learn for me that racism and bigotry is in the eye of the beholder, and so often the beholder can't see very well. So a person can not be a racist, like a friend became a friend of mine in Memphis when I got a job here. He appeared to be a redneck. He was from Poplar Springs, Missouri, tobacco chewing, just ugh. But when I got to know him, he was not prejudiced. He was just a jerk. he was a butthole, not a racist. And it came to fruition one day when his boyfriend came with a rubber shirt, and he lost it because he knew we couldn't wear Malcolm X stuff. But I thought maybe he was doing it then for that. But as I got to talk to him, I went to Poplar Spring, met his dad. Good guy. He just was a jerk. I mean, it wasn't that black people didn't like him. Nobody liked him. But he had wrapped his life up in his job. He had no outlet. He come there and spend 14, 15 hours a day. He's not working, but he's on the computer because he feel like he have to be there. So you rob a person of their life. My mother used to always say it, and she didn't put it in practice. All work and no play makes a dull journey. But that's all she ever did was work. And that's what I find myself doing. But it's not work. When you love it, it's not work. So the military, I didn't have a lot of experience with racism other than I see it. In the way I walked around in it, they knew, don't start that with him. Maybe that's why. My brothers would pull my coat. Oh, there you go, bringing up that race stuff. They acting racist. I can't ignore that. If I was with my black friends and you was a little white partner of mine, and you picking on him for that now, cuz that ain't the way that works. I had a friend that was Philip LaBrie from Florida. He was a nut job. He's one of these white guys, he was just a man. That's what I want to be, just a man. So if I go into a bar and engage some black guys, he's a white guy, he engages some black guys. In basketball, the first thing they say is, man, shit, whoop, whoop, whoop. He joins in and counter. You don't get that often. Am I right? White kids stay silent, don't they? And he just joined in. Everybody was like, this white boy said, what did he say? Did he say that? And then, I had to be there for him because I'm saying, he right. Y'all don't know what the hell you're talking about. But that's how we just want to be. I think most people just want to be treated as equal. But until we get there, we got to speak that. Just to say that we finna sing a bunch of kumbayas, and when I go back to work, I know my boss gonna fire me because I participated with the kumbaya. So, racism.
What about violence? Did you experience or did you observe racial violence in your formative years in school?
And if it wasn't racism, it was hatred, and that hatred was most of the time from black guys, because you got to realize Marshall County is a uniquely different little place. We got a large population of black people. We had 2 black colleges. We had a black Wall Street here, in a sense, for you guys that maybe know more about Holly Springs. See, right here on Memphis Street, which is now called the Ida B. Wells, we're changing the name to Ida B. Wells, which may God bless that endeavor. starting up there, you had the United Methodist Church, which is a white institution, but they had a black HBC. Across the street from it was the church I used to attend, which is CME, Kristin Methodist Church. They had built MI, Mississippi Industrial College. So you got to realize that African Americans did something that no other people did on the planet. Over 120 some colleges and universities was built within a few years after their release of slavery. So that's unreal. Then you had these two black colleges. Then you had, on those two black colleges, a strip that had two doctors, a dentist and a regular doctor that blacks could go to. You had a hotel, a motel that was there, Clark Motel. You had Russell's Barber Shop. You had College Inn, had cafes for the college students and the faculty. You had a laundromat. This is in the 1960s. You had a garage. You had a service station on Don Street. The guy that stays by the multi-purpose now, that has a business. That used to be Don Street service station when you was coming to town. Chevron, because Chevron had a deal. I realized that when I met my father-in-law, and he began to tell me up in Nashville that he owned a gas station. And when he told me Chevron, I said it had to be some type of affirmative action piece. See, we overlook these, like I told him and I told you. We don't pay enough attention to the white people that are in the struggle with us. And most of the time, they don't really want to be seen, just like my Uncle Roy. You wouldn't know Roy was in the struggle as deep as he was. Brother Manor Miller, up the street up here, used to be at Russ College, a white guy, that was denounced by the Baptist Church because of his participation in the struggle, So you had a dynamic group of people here. Now, with that, it creates other problems, too. I'm not a philosopher and I don't know nothing about all this stuff. I'm just saying stuff. When I attended the church here at Anderson Chapel, for example, we had at least 6 couples that was teachers. You hear what I'm saying? In a church. Not even talking about the teacher that wasn't married to a teacher. But there was 6 couples I know or more. And I can just name them things go off. Then the ladies that was teachers. See, because I think in the philosophy that I am drawn to, this move from prosperity out of slavery and enslavement. I think men wanted to move from instead of having dusty shoes and dusty boots, they wanted to have shiny shoes. Wouldn't you want shiny shoes? Get away from the plow? So the only avenues to shiny shoes were teaching and preaching. So what we gonna do? I'm going into teaching. And it came with a certain amount of respect. A black teacher in the 60s and the 70s, a lawyer couldn't touch it. That's the advocacy piece. It used to be honored. But the left, the right, have weaponized kindness. If you are kind, you're weak. And you're to be shunned. They even call you a bleeding heart liberal, meaning that you feel for other people. What's bad about that? A girl asked me one time, I'm a Sagittarius, she said, oh, you a Sagittarius, you one of those people, and I be listening to cliches and I break them. My partner got so mad about it the other day when he said it, he drove off. She says, oh, I'm a so-and-so, and I said, oh yeah, you can dish it and can't take it. She said, no, I'm a true one, I can dish it and take it. She was, I think, a Virgo. And then she said, you a Sagittarius, you one of them people that think you want to be right all the time. Now, any other time I'd have been offended. I said, hold up, you're right. What's wrong with being right all the time? Who shouldn't desire to be right all the time? Would you want me to periodically be wrong and accept that? But a person that desires to be right all the time is also a person, if he's truly a person that wants to be right all the time, he's going to always try to seek where he's wrong and fix where he's wrong so that he can be right all the time. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing, being right all the time. So, there's a lot of different philosophy and a lot of different things. Sports is it's awesome. I can sit down with most guys, don't watch a lot of TV, sports. I watch it at the game day and all that, but I don't argue about it, fall out about it. I said, this don't make any sense. You arguing about who's going to win the game, all you got to do is wait. Right? My kids used to say, I can't wait till Sunday, man, because the Super Bowl come on, or I can't wait for the game. I said, okay, now what you going to do? If you can't wait, what are you going to do?
You mentioned, I'm sorry to
Go ahead.
You mentioned the street name change. Can you speak a little bit to that and
yes,
your experience of that?
It had a little friction too. And He was there, I think, and you had some good words. And you saw how I dealt with that, because we're not itching what we're scratching and scratching what we're itching. It'll be a great idea. It's just a good thing. You're talking about Martin Luther King Drive, comes up into current day Memphis Street, which has a legacy, and that's what the mayor had a problem with, that it has a legacy, but it's just a name. Really, it has no significance. Now, we know Randolph is named after the Confederate general, or somebody that dealt with the Confederacy. And her grandfather, I think, was one of the people, family was a part of that. So that created some problem. But he had ceded the money to the city, and the span was short. We was gonna go from the place that is currently the museum to Russ College, which was on the backside of the town and the backside of Russ College. So it would have been a short stretch. Memphis was just the perfect thing. I mean, it's the main street. You could talk about what was on Memphis Street, like I just told you. I can say formerly known as Memphis Street. Still can be conjuring up that name all the time. So I was totally behind it. And then you thought, if you're gonna make it an issue about the Confederacy, which is legit, that's a battle of another day. Because you got a lot of streets that has the Confederate name. So do you just pick on one? So you gotta be ready to fight your battle and stand your ground if you're gonna challenge the Confederacy piece of it. So I was glad to see them moving from Memphis Street to Ida B. Wells, because I do respect Ida B. Wells, and there's not enough known about Ida B. Wells, and especially about people in Holly Springs. See, the world knows Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells, like I told people, they get offended. Martin may not make my top 5 cut. In the last 150 years of Africans, he may not make my top 5 cut. Because see, Martin, you got to think about it yourself. He's been made an icon. You don't even know anything about him. You got 2 speeches that was very docile, right? And so they pick from that because they want you docile. But he had some fiery speeches about economics, about the war, about poverty. But you don't get those because the society had to choose the lesser of 2 evils. Do we go down the road of Stark Carmichael and these people coming down like this guy? Or do we stay the course and say non-violent and when we are violent towards you? Now, I said something the other day that was kind of flippant. And I don't want nobody to take this out of context on this thing. You can edit it out. The guy come to me, he's a supervisor of the county. So he has responsibility to what happens here. And he asking me, what should we do about, teach our kids about how to act and respond to police officers when they pull us over? I said, now, based upon your law, those young men ought to be getting out with gun blazing. Because when they take our life, right, what do they say? The number 1 defense is, I was afraid for my life. And I asked that supervisor, I said, when you get a police behind you, don't you get a little concerned? You ain't done anything. If your son is driving your Mercedes-Benz in the wrong neighborhood, he get pulled over, he's a good kid, this cop treats him like nothing, he said something back to the cop, it done escalated, and it should have never existed. Now he got a resisting the arrest, failing to comply, the trumped up charge that he said he stopped you for. So my thing is this, why are black people been taught, we've been doing it too long. If I got an SUV and I got 7 seatbelts in that car, my son ought to be able to ride around with 6 people. Why should I tell my son to only drive 2 deep? You know how it is. Then my job as a man, it needs to be changing the laws that teach them how to treat my son. When we gonna do that? They want to go home too. Trayvon wanted to go home. To me, wanted to go home. I say this right here, and I say it, and don't edit this. There's 2 types of people that carries a pistol. You know those 2 types? Come on, tell me the 2 types of people that carry the firearm.
Prey and predator? Prey and predator?
I couldn't say it no better. I meant to change the way I see it. Killers and cowards. Now, preachers joining us to stop the violence, but you packing in your pulpit. You say, well, no, everybody ain't a coward. A soldier ain't a coward. Well, why you got your gun? Lay it down. You got it because you're afraid for your life. You can't try to quantify cowardice because you are a predator, a prey. You're vigilant of the predator. So, if the prey could, he would take a gun because he's afraid. Japan don't have no police that's toting a lot of guns. England just started it. We got to be realistic and be pragmatic in everything that we do.
I wanted to ask how you got involved with Mr. Rubin and his ties to your family.
It's a weird thing with Mr. Rubin. I really still don't know Mr. Rubin. The last time we talked, we was at a libation ceremony, and that's when we kind of started chopping it up. You was in and out of town. We had been dealing with a guy named David Purser. I think David had just passed on. Matter of fact, it was for David. And Mr. Rubin, anybody that's in the struggle, especially, I'm just gonna be honest, and I don't, when I see my white brother with the right heart, it moves me sometimes greater than when I see a black person with the right heart. And I don't want that to be taken no kind of way. It's just that when a person crosses the line to help another person, there is no suspicion. Black folks should stand up for black folks. But when a white person stand up for him, he ain't got nothing to gain but everything to lose. It talks about that peace moving from that superior aspect to that simple aspect. And that is to be admired of any person, the simplicity of life. So we have to begin to see there would be no Underground Railroad. It wasn't black people that owned the houses, right? It wasn't black people that owned safe houses. They didn't exist. And those people that had those safe houses risked their whole family. When that kind-hearted German, that Quaker, that abolitionist, decided that I'm gonna let these people come through my basement and I'm gonna make sure that they get to Canada, but if I get caught, they're gonna kill all of my family. Because that's what your federal government had allowed to do with it. The slave fugitive laws. What kind of stuff is that? So nobody was on our side, but a few in creation. Harriet Tubman and a few in creation. So when you have creation with you and the whole world is against you, they are outnumbered. Do you understand? It took me a long time to believe that. You got me? So when you are one, you can do all things. So if we would begin to exalt some of our white leaders, Lord Garrison, one that brings tears to my eyes most times is John Brown. John Brown didn't have that to do, man. And then when he got to Harper's Ferry, we didn't have enough courage to pick up our weapons. Another thing that this pains me, I said at the Veterans Program one day and they got mad at me. I said, how long must Negroes kill other people to show their humanity and you still not accept it? We done fought in every war. Every war. Even the Haitians came to fight to free Savannah. We always go and kill for this country. How long are we gonna do that? And then you gotta realize what you do when you live in a paganistic society such as this. These governments have become like cults. You got a religion that is generally promoted to control the society in which you have made. So we have to be real about it. I mean, like I said, I left school. I don't know anything about nothing. Go ahead, sweetheart.
What advice would you give the next generation of activists and advocates for social justice?
Be true to you. Be true to you. I don't think words can. I don't think words can really express that. But being true to them, know thyself, know what they are fighting for, and know that the fight can never be physical. You understand? Physical confrontation is a waste of flesh. It really is. Harsh words is a waste of time. It really is. So the next generation of advocates, be true. Believe what you see. And know thyself. I don't know no other way of doing it. And I think they're finna do it. They're getting ready. The word fitting, my wife get on me about that. That means getting ready. I think they're getting ready to do that. See, it's finna be some unique changes in this world. White kids and black kids are no longer seeing the necessity of division. But they have to also move away from a concept that has been embroiled in our thinking that I don't see color. You have to see color. Because there is color. But you have to respect regardless of color. You know? So I say just be true, because this killing, if you don't put something, if you don't get that under control, and these black people are no longer having the taboos of killing a white person, you're losing it because they're sitting with you now. And eventually, if you don't do something about this, it's coming to a theater near you. It really is. I've seen incidents where young white girls get with black boys, and most of the time it's motivated by the hatred that their family see of this black boy. So they become sympathetic. It's a Stockholm syndrome in reverse. Just like a battered woman will defend her abuser and become sympathetic. So my first child is of a Caucasian relationship, and I see her strong sister, extra strong sister. And I wonder why these children that are of two different parents, because it's only one race, why they respond to racism most often more aggressive than the young black child. Because I think they realize that I am human, and one side of me, their side won't even accept me. And then when the black folks reject that side, it's not out of hatred, it's out of envy. Because we got so much isms and schism. Light skin and dark skin, and tall, and rich, and poor, and none of us got nothing. We don't own anything. It's sad when you can't buy a piece of raw meat from a man that look like me. I can't buy an onion from a man that looks like me. I can't buy decent shoes from a man that looks like me. I can't borrow a substantial amount of money at a bank from a man that looks like me. So, how do we fix this? How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So I encourage the kids to be aware of what you're up against. Because once you take that high road, you can't come back down to that low road. Traffic jams are key. You can't stand it. And then you know you're wrong. See, to be ignorant and do something wrong is one thing. To be cognizant of doing wrong is another.
Thank you so much for sharing with us. I think we all really appreciate your thoughts and you sharing your story and your history with us, and for also being appreciative of us seeking out the truth and trying to give a voice to the voiceless.
That's exactly what it is, baby. Y'all stay strong and keep speaking for the poor, the masses. keep speaking for them. All the greats in this world, if they was great, they spoke for the least.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.